If this is your first ERP project, you are going to come across many different ERP companies, and they all might appear very similar, but there are differences in terms of what their focus is and what they are capable of. So, which are different ERP companies in 2023? That's what we are going to discuss in this video. So, let's dive in. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Gupta. I'm principal at ElevatIQ. ElevatIQ is the independent ERP digital transformation consulting firm. We help our clients with ERP selection, digital transformation strategy, roadmap development, as well as ERP implementation. So let's look at the list now. Number one on our list is the ERP Publishers. And the best way to understand the ERP value chain is going to be to look at manufacturing value chain. And in the manufacturing value chain, you have the manufacturers who are producing physical goods, and then you have distributors who are simply distributing those physical goods. The same way in the ERP industry, you have the ERP publishers. The publishers are publishing the software, meaning they are manufacturing, they are writing the software, and you are going to have other companies who are going to be distributing the software. So sometimes these publishers may have their own internal professional services team. Sometimes they might be doing the implementations through their resellers. Now, the example of ERP publishers are going to be you have SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, which is the tier 1 providers. Then you have slightly more tier 2 providers, which are going to be your Infor, Epicor, Sage. Then you have some of the other solutions, which is going to be Acumatica, NetSuite. You are going to have Aptean. These are some of the examples of the ERP publisher. Now, different types of ERP publishers. So some of them are slightly more horizontal solution. And the way the horizontal solutions work is they typically rely on their resellers to develop the IP. So you are not going to find as much functionality as part of these ERP system, but they might be slightly more globalized and localized a lot. So depending upon what you are looking for. So for example, let's say if you are going to be a global company involved in M&A, looking for many different business models as part of your ERP, then horizontal solutions might be a better fit. If you are a mid-market company looking for fully integrated, a lot of operational capabilities as part of the solution, then you have slightly more vertically focused solution you should be looking at. Now, what do these publishers care for? They typically care for license revenue, and that's their primary motivation. Sometimes they might have service revenue, but they don't necessarily care for that. Their driver always is going to be, and sometimes they are trying to justify their license revenue in saying that you can implement these solutions, let's say in 60 days, 90 days, just because they need to justify the value of their solution. But even if you can implement, you might not be able to use it because it might be heavy transition for you. Now, you might have some of the other issues. For example, let's say if you are working with the companies that might not have their reseller channel, typically the documentation is going to be poorer for those solutions just because they are internally supporting it, and they might not be treating the documentation as part of the product. So these are some of the issues that you are going to face when you are going to be dealing with the ERP publishers. But overall, the strength of ERP publishers is not necessarily the consulting. From their perspective, everything is going to be about their solution. But there might be other solutions in the market that could be a better fit for the use case. For example, if you ask any ERP vendors, they are always going to say that, you know what, even if you have e-commerce, you can probably do that inside ERP. Now, you always have the overlapping functionality across the solution boundaries, but typically each solution has their own sort of a strength in terms of what they are designed for. So that's where if you are working with the consulting companies, then they might be able to guide you, especially if they might not have any sort of affiliation with these ERP publisher. In most cases, you will be working with the publisher. You are going to use their software. So you definitely need to deal with them regardless of how you engaged with them. So that's number one. 2 on our list is ERP resellers or system integrator. Now, the ERP resellers typically are trying to sell one solution or a couple of solutions. They are typically not going to carry the competing solutions. So typically, let's say if they are SAP reseller, the other OEM may not be interested in working with them just because they are going to be sharing the competitive intel, which some OEMs don't like. So depending upon how their relationships are set up, some resellers might come across as independent just because they are carrying a lot of solutions, but that does not mean that they are necessarily independent. So the type of resellers are going to be, you have Acumatica partners, you have NetSuite partners, Infor partners, Epicor partners, SAP partners. These are some of the resellers. Then you have the second type, which is going to be system integrator. Now, system integrators also have very similar business model. These could be large system integrators or the smaller system integrators. But for the most part, the way their business model is designed, they are going to have a lot of practices. Just like your ERP resellers, they are going to carry only a few solutions, even though they might carry a lot. That does not mean that they are going to be independent. So the examples of system integrators are going to be Accenture, Deloitte, and then you have Tata, you have HCL. These are some of the examples of system integrators. So what do they care for? They care for the consulting revenue. Service revenue is what they care for. Sometimes they might have their own IP and they might be incentivized to sell that. And because of that, they are going to have biases in the architecture that they are going to decide. Just they are trying to push their own IP to have the lock. And sometimes the issues could be as severe as that, okay, if you bought an ERP which did not really have your industry functionality baked in, and now you are trying to use the IP from the reseller, and the issue that you are going to get is, let's say if you have issue with the reseller and you are trying to switch, so you are going to speak with the OEM, you are going to ask them, okay, can I change my partner? They are going to say, you know what, you can change the partner. But if you change the partner, then you will not be able to use the solution because you don't have that IP. So the locking that you have with the reseller might be far tighter than with the OEM. And that's why you need to watch for these things if they are using any sort of IP on top of the horizontal platform. Now, the other issues that you need to look for is the way the channel allocation works with resellers, as each reseller is going to be responsible for a specific customer type. So let's say if you want to change the reseller or if you're not happy with them, it might be trickier because the way resellers are positioned in the market, they are really the extended arm of the OEM. So they need to be treated more of the OEM's agent. They are not necessarily the independent advisors. The other issues that you are going to face, especially with the system integrator, sometimes you might have practices inside the system integrators and they might be competing with each other just because that's how their compensation is designed. So your hope is going to be that, let's say if you are going for larger system integrators such as Accenture or Deloitte, your goal is going to be, hey, they can do a lot and they are going to look at my architecture as well as business from the holistic perspective. But just because they are so large, they are going to be competing with each other. And because of that competition, they might not provide the holistic perspective in the architecture. So you need to be careful there as well. Now, you have other issues such as NDAs. A lot of resellers are going to sign the NDA with their OEM, and they have a clause in those NDAs that they are always supposed to be favorably positioning the product. Even if they want to be honest in their assessment, they might not be able to do that just because of the legal compliance issues with their NDA. So that's number 2 company that you are going to deal with during your ERP project. Now, number 3 is ERP ISVs or add-on companies. So ERP ISVs are the independent software vendors or the add-on companies. You are definitely going to require a lot of different add-ons as part of your ERP project. Sometimes these add-ons could be your e-commerce add-ons or the customer or vendor portals, or it could be sales tax or AR automation. So you are definitely going to be using a lot of add-ons. Sometimes these add-ons may be critical, sometimes they might not be as critical. Sometimes the add-ons could touch the master data. So depending upon the type of add-on, okay, you need to analyze how critical that add-on is going to be for your architecture and whether you are going to have any sort of technical risk because of that. And the way these add-ons are designed, they are typically provided by many different companies and they are not tested together. So sometimes there might be conflict from the architecture perspective. The business object that add-on 1 may be hijacking, add-on 2 might be using that, and when you are going to combine them, they might not work well together. So you need to watch for that. Now, the other issues that you are going to be facing when you are working with ISV or add-on companies is that some of these add-ons may be promoted by your VARs as opposed to ISV. Some of the ISV companies are funded by VCs and PE companies, so they have slightly stronger position in the market overall from the product development perspective. So their product can be treated as the other OEMs, but there are VARs and they might have just 2 or 3 installation for the add-on. They might not have as much budget to be able to maintain their add-on, so you might face issues there. Now, typically, what do they care for? So ISVs typically care for the license revenue for their add-on. They are trying to sell that. They might not care as much for the professional service revenue. Then you might notice that some of these ISVs may offer free selection advice just to sell their software, but even their selection advice is most likely going to be biased. So you need to be careful there, just because they are probably trying to position the partners that they might have in their alliances, and they might be trying to sell them just because that's how they sort of source their leads. Then you have the white label add-ons. That is another thing that you need to be careful of. So even though you might be feeling that, you know what, you are looking at Acumatica, NetSuite, SAP, Oracle, but then they might have white labeled add-ons. And the way these add-ons work is you might never come to know about them that they are white labeled. Even on the contract, they might have an agreement with the OEM that they can sell on OEM's papers. So during the demos, you are never going to find this out. During the contract negotiation phase, you might not find it out either. But once you are going to be ready for the support, then you have to go to those companies. So there might be issues due to just because this is owned by a different company. So you need to be careful there as well. So that's number 3. Now, number 4 on our list is the independent ERP consultants. So the role of the independent ERP consultants in the market is that they are not affiliated with any vendor, and the way their business model is, they will not be able to work with any of the vendors. They might not be trained on their solution just because these OEMs are not going to open up their solutions to independent ERP consultants because of the IP risks. So these independent ERP consultants have to work with one of the VARs. Now, they might split the responsibilities in terms of who is going to be doing what during the implementation. For the most part, the independent ERP consultants are going to be taking care of the change management. They are taking off some responsibilities from your plate, and they are taking off some responsibilities from the vendor's plate. But for the most part, they have to work with a VAR or OEM in that engagement. Now, if you come across any independent ERP consultants that may claim that they don't need to work with any of the VARs, most likely they are not going to be independent, because any company that is going to be claiming that they can work with this, that means they have like 200 different practices. That is not financially feasible. So be careful there. Now, even independent ERP consultants are going to be of different types. There are companies that are going to specialize only in the selection. There are companies that do the entire business transformation. Their capabilities are going to be very different. So make sure you guys vet those capabilities. What do they care for? They care for revenue from the customer. They typically don't make any money from the software license or from the vendors. So the only revenue that they are getting is from the customers. So they are not going to be biased. They are going to be on your side just because they are not making any sort of money from the vendors. Now, issues. So many different types of ERP selection consultants in the market. So obviously you have a lot of noise. Especially the companies that only specialize in the selection, they might not have as much implementation experience. Sometimes the issues that you are going to get because of that is going to be that once you have done the selection and now you are going to the implementation team, the technical team that is going to implement the ERP or the entire enterprise architecture, they might not understand what the selection company had done, and they might not follow their recommendation. So even though you had hired a selection consulting firm or the independent consulting firm, but you might not get the results. So you might want to look for the independent ERP consultants who have the implementation expertise as well, who can speak the language of the technical teams as well as speaking the language of the business team. So that's number 4. Now, number 5 on our list is change and project management consulting firms. Most of the independent ERP consultants are going to have the change as well as project management expertise, but there are other change and project management consulting firms that might not have the ERP subject matter expertise. In general, with the ERP projects, ERP subject matter expertise still matters regardless of whether you are working with the change management firm, project management firm, integration firm. It doesn't matter. The ERP expertise is still relevant whether they are implementing or not implementing. They have to have ERP implementation experience. So now the role of these change management and project management consulting firms, if you are going to hire them and they might not be part of the ERP industry, their role is going to be just doing the training, but that training is not going to have as much ERP subject matter expertise. The types of change and project management consulting firms that we have in the market, you have the change management consulting firm that might be doing change for, let's say, a physical process. And if you are going to hire these change management consulting firm, you are probably going to have issues. The same thing goes with the project management as well. Even for the project management, you require the ERP subject matter expertise. They need to understand the ERP data model. They should be able to communicate the same language with the technical teams. Otherwise, you are probably going to have issues. So what do they care for? They care for the change management revenue is what they are really after. The issues that you are going to have with them is that not enough cycles under their belt, no ERP subject matter expertise, relying on the vendors for the ERP subject matter expertise, not keeping track of the industry on a daily basis. So these are some of the issues that you are going to face with them. Now that's number 5. Number 6 on our list is accounting and fractional CFO firms. And these are all of the mid-market and the large accounting firms that you might hire them for audit, or the fractional CFO firms, just because you might not have internal CFO, you may have hired them for that. Now, obviously, since ERP systems are very financially centric systems, you might ask for their advice and you might want to work with them. They might offer their selection offering, but for the most part, number one, they are going to be biased to certain solutions. They are not doing this on a daily basis, so they might not understand the ERP politics. So what do they care for? They care for reporting and financial analysis, revenue, and typically when you are going to work with them, their role is going to be to create as many reports, on top of some of the other solutions that we have in the market. For example, on top of QuickBooks, they are incentivized to create as many reports as possible, just because that's how they make money. So sometimes they might not be pushing for a real ERP solution just because they are making money because of that. So now the issues that you are going to face with them is their perspective is going to be limited to finance, might not get traction from the other department just because their perspective is going to be biased just to accounting and finance, and they might come across as biased. The large accounting firms are most likely going to be biased to certain solutions just because they are trying to sell their IP, and they are not going to be interested in selling any solutions where their IP may not be a fit, and then their practices are most likely going to be competing with each other. So because of that, they might not have that whole business transformation perspective, and they might be overcommitting their capabilities just to get that revenue among their practices. So that's number 6. Now, number 7 on our list is the freelance consultants or the fractional executives. So these are some of the companies that you are going to deal with when you might be doing the ERP for the first time. These are the executives that may be in transition in between jobs, and sometimes they might be helping companies with the ERP selection, project management. Now, the issue that you are going to face with them is they might not have a strong team backing them. They are not doing this on a daily basis. They might be biased to certain solutions that they may have implemented. What do they care for? And typically the issues that you are going to face with them is not enough cycles under their belt, no ERP expertise, relying on vendors for the ERP subject matter expertise, not keeping track of the industry on a daily basis. So that's what you are going to get with the freelance consultants. So that's number 7. Now, number 8 on our list is the business process, lean, or the supply chain consulting companies. Now, these companies are great, with respect to their business process expertise, lean, supply chain expertise, but then you might hire them for the ERP selection as well. They might claim their capabilities for ERP selection, but the issue that you are going to face with them is, again, they are not doing the ERP selection on a daily basis. They are not keeping track of the industry. They might not know the different discounts that might be available. They might not have access to as many quotes. They might not understand where to negotiate and what to negotiate with the ERP vendors without having any sort of risks that you are going to get through that negotiation. So these are the companies that you are definitely going to face when you are doing your ERP project. So that's number 8. Now, number 9 on our list is the web development, marketing agencies, and IT companies. And sometimes people who might not have as much experience with ERP, they might put ERP under the same bucket. They might feel that even marketing agencies might be able to do these projects, or IT companies might be able to do these projects. ERP systems in general are very different. They require very different expertise from the business process perspective, from the ERP data model perspective, from the enterprise architecture perspective, from the process alignment, data alignment perspective. So it's a very, very, very different expertise. But these companies might claim that they have ERP selection expertise. They might claim that they have the ERP integration expertise. But you need to be careful, just because the issues that you are going to face with them is they are not going through as many cycles. They may not have as many cycles under their belt. They don't have as much ERP subject matter expertise. They might not have formal education in supply chain or accounting, and they might be relying on vendors for the ERP subject matter expertise and not keeping track of the industry on a daily basis and biased to only few solutions aligned to their expertise. So these are some of the issues that you are going to face with them. That's number 9. Now, number 10 on our list is affiliate marketing companies. And affiliate marketing companies are like marketplaces. These companies have much higher ranking on Google in general. And if you are looking at the first, second, third probably rank, it's probably going to be these companies. The example of these companies are going to be your G2 Capterra. It's going to be your Software Connect. These are the companies. Their business model is to sell leads to the software companies, and their role ends there. But they might offer the ERP selection advice. So the issues that you are going to get with them is their processes are very similar to the checklist approach. They might position them as the selection experts, but they don't really have that ERP implementation expertise. So their advice might not be as meaningful, and you might have challenges with your ERP project. So that's number 10. If you enjoyed this video, we are going to include the link of an article that is going to have much deeper analysis. So you might want to check that. Also, if you enjoy audio version, this podcast is also available on Google, Spotify, as well as Apple. So you might want to check that and subscribe there. We publish these videos on a weekly basis. So hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss them. Also, if you have not checked our digital transformation report for 2023, we are going to include the link. So check that out. On that note, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.